I had a real estate investing channel, my Dream 10 would all be other real estate investment channels. My Model 10 would be like other educational channels. And then what I do is for my Dream 10, I would like sort the videos by most popular. And I would make a note of all those topics that are working. And then I would look at their last 30 videos. And then I go to my Model 10 and I look for outliers from their channels as well. I'm going to find some of their best performing formats. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to marry those two. I'm going to have my proven topics with these proven formats. And boom, that's how I'm going to come up with a bunch of different ideas.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Evergreen Marketing Podcast by Carrot.com, where we help investors build businesses of freedom and impact by helping you get more leads, close more deals. I'm your host, Brady Winder. And today I got a new friend, and someone new to the podcast. I'm super excited to introduce to you. His name's Jake. And let me tell you how I met him. So I make YouTube videos on the side. I manage YouTube channels on the side. We have videos go viral. I do videos for Carrot, run podcasts. You guys know all this, but I spend a lot of time mulling over the perfect title and the perfect copy and what is going to get this email to open up, what's going to get someone to click on this YouTube video, because that's my job as a content marketer. And a lot of you that are doing any form of marketing, you know, like the pain and the struggle of like, how do I craft the perfect message to get someone to click my email, this video, or even to like pay attention to my postcard that I'm sending out as an investor. I spent all this time mulling over subject lines and the perfect copy. And then one day I stumble on, I don't even remember how, but I stumble on, Mallory on our team actually told me about it. She said, yeah, I have this newsletter called Creator Hooks, YouTube newsletter. I was like, what the heck is this? So I subscribed to it. And this guy's just like sending out this gold every week, like how to write perfect YouTube titles and breaking down YouTube titles that worked and YouTube titles that flopped. I'm like, this is so good. So anyways, I wanted to bring you guys the man behind the newsletter who's written thousands of YouTube titles that have generated hundreds of millions in views, and have a conversation about like what makes people click, what makes people watch, and just nerd out. So Jake, that was the longest intro I've done in a while, but welcome to the podcast, man.
Dude, Brady, that was a great intro. It got me excited. I was like, man, how did he find out about me? That's great to hear.
Absolutely, man. Well, I love your newsletter and I love your tool. We'll get into that in a little bit, but your newsletter has been super helpful for me. And I'm just a copywriting nerd. I know you are too. And so I just want to really break down like, how can we write better copy? How can we make better YouTube titles, subject lines, things like that? So yeah, man.
The good news is that like the same strategies work for everything. So like technically I'm like a YouTube title nerd. Like it's where most of my focus is. And like, that's where people know me as, but I use the same thing for like the email subject line for my newsletter is just, I just use a YouTube title for that inspiration. Same thing for like, like hooks on like LinkedIn posts and Twitter threads. Like it's just psychology. So it's very widely applicable. There's like, some minute details, depending on what platform you're in. But the cool thing is like, if you learn psychology of what gets people's attention and what gets them to click, you could use that anywhere.
It's true, man. Like there might be little nuances, but yeah, I found the same thing. It's like figuring out, like obsessing over better YouTube titles has made me a better copywriter, better email marketer, like all around. It's pretty cool. So let's talk about like YouTube title psychology and maybe even concepts. You want to start with like psychology, like title psychology, or concepts first? Like what makes a great title?
Yeah, let's do psychology. So just like the simple way to think about, all right, what makes a good YouTube title. It's what I call the 3 click-worthy emotions: curiosity, fear, and desire. And it could be curiosity and fear, curiosity and desire. But it's usually some combo of those 3, like just super high level curiosity, fear, desire. So when you're thinking about like your titles, you're like, all right, well, I want to make a video about how to sell your house. So we could say like, let's start with curiosity, like the number 1 secret to selling your house. You could say like, how to sell your, like, well, maybe we'll think about like a desire angle. So they want to sell it fast. How to sell your house in 30 days. Or we could think about like the fear angle, like, the biggest mistake that's costing you thousands when you're selling your house. Those are all different ways to kind of say the same thing. And, when you're thinking about a subject line or really any sort of content or YouTube title, it's ideal if you can think, all right, here's kind of what I want to say. Here's what would get my audience to click. And then like, I'm going to write a title that kind of delivers on that promise of like, oh, this is what my audience is interested in. I'm going to give them that. And then the content follows. But and as you're working through things, a lot of people get stuck. Like a lot of people say like, all right, if you want to write a YouTube title or email subject line, write out 10 or 20 or 30. But it's really hard for a lot of us because we're kind of like stuck in our ways. But for me, thinking about the 3 click-worthy emotions, like, okay, I don't need to write 10 titles about how to sell at my house. I need to write 10 titles from like a curiosity angle. All right, that's a lot easier. Okay, and then now I can write 10 titles from like a desire angle. All right, that's easier. 10 titles from a fear angle. Okay, that's pretty easy. Well, now I have 30 titles, and like I've really thought about this through all these different angles, and that can help you kind of little by little find out like the perfect title for what you're going for and what you think your audience would be interested in. Just
I
kind
like
of
that, trying to go after each of them, like just the curiosity angle instead of trying to mash all those perfect angles together.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. It's just, it kind of breaks it down, a little bit more digestible, a little easier, though that constraint actually makes things really easy for you. And that's kind of like a little like prompt. So it's like a little writing prompt for you to like, hey, like, write all these titles from a fear angle, write all these titles from a desire angle.
Yeah. It's interesting. I used to like really look down on like any sort of like fear-based title and like, oh, it's just clickbait. And like, it's interesting. My relationship, my view with clickbait has changed over the years. I used to think like, to me, like any sort of like good, compelling copywriting on a YouTube title was like, oh, that's clickbait. It's clickbait. And now I look at it, I'm like, okay, it's only clickbait if they don't deliver on it. Now I'm more in the camp of like, okay, there is a line. You don't want to be too extreme with your titles, but if the content is important and if you're convicted about it and people need to watch it and you need people to watch that video to do business with you, and if you're doing business for good reasons, then like do whatever you can within certain means to like get people to click the video and watch it if what's inside is important, as long as you follow through on the promise of the title. Yeah, that's a huge thing.
I 100% agree with you. Like, in my opinion, that is like the definition of clickbait is when you don't follow through on that promise. I think everybody has their own definition of clickbait. So like I was with like my dad and he was like, I was like watching him like open on YouTube, be like, oh, there's all this clickbait crap. And I'm like, Dad, a lot of these titles are literally just like describing what's in the video. It's just a really cool video. Like,
yeah, you're like, no, the bar is high. They're actually great videos. You should watch it.
Yeah. I feel like, a lot of people just assume, kind of like what you used to assume that like anything negative is clickbait. But like, if you're connecting with your audience on an emotional level, like your audience does have like real fears and you're serving them by, addressing their fears and kind of saying, hey, like, here's like a huge problem that you're dealing with. Like, let's talk about it. And some people might think it's clickbait because you use negativity or fear or drama or something in the title. But then on the other hand, other people can be like, oh, this is awesome. Like this really, like, this is exactly what I needed. Like this thing has been like scaring me and frustrating me. This is a big problem I've been dealing with for a long time. This video is awesome. This video is super helpful. So I 100% agree with your definition of clickbait and also like your call to like try to get people to click.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to reaffirm it. It's just theories bouncing around in my head. But it's not really fear mongering. It's like, okay, so I like what you said. People have those fears and concerns already. So most of the time, like you're not planting new fears in their head. It's like if you're going after the right audience, they have those fears and concerns. You're actually guiding them to a solution.
And
it's
like,
interesting.
We're genetically wired to like listen to negativity. So like, let's pretend, we're in the caveman times and like you and I are in our cave and our like woolly mammoth loincloths. And I'm like, hey, Brady, there's some berries outside, go pick them. You're going to be like, I'm not hungry right now. Like, it's fine. I'm good. But if I'm like, hey, Brady, there's a saber-toothed tiger outside, don't go outside, you're going to listen to me. Because if you don't listen to me, you're going to die. And if you die, you're not going to pass on your genes, right? So
Yeah.
like, people who listen to warnings are the ones who survive. So like we're literally genetically wired to listen to warnings. So you're just kind of leveraging biology and psychology to grow your business and to to serve people and get their attention. So,
Yeah.
and it's I don't want to say it's like, it can be easier to get more views if you're all negativity. So there's definitely a balance. And also like, maybe it's probably not what, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't want to be some like doom and gloom commentary person. It is
Mhm.
a way to get a lot of views. And we can talk about the psychology of getting views without negativity.
Yeah.
But it's a tool. It's just, negativity and fear and drama are just tools in your toolbox.
Right. Yeah. I like that. So you said the three elements are like curiosity, fear, and desire. Let's talk about the curiosity element. And for like everyone listening, watching, we're gonna get into more meaty, like tactical stuff. We're gonna get into like biggest mistakes, split testing. We got a lot to cover, but I feel like the curiosity thing is one of the hardest things to nail. People either are like, I know for me, one of my biggest mistakes that I've learned is like I was always way too like focused on describing what's in the video. Like, oh, the title has to exactly describe what's in the video, or I'm being dishonest or not truthful. Um, but where's the mix? Like, how do you get the perfect amount of curiosity to get
Yeah.
people to click?
I mean, that's so I in my opinion, learning how to effectively build curiosity is maybe the most powerful skill you can learn on YouTube. Like that's the most out of
Mm,
those three emotions: curiosity, fear, and desire. Curiosity is the most powerful one. um, so there's a bunch of different ways you can build curiosity. Kind of the biggest thing is like you want to somehow build a question in your audience's mind, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what's going on here?" Most people think like building curiosity, like, okay, well, let's write the title as a question, like, how do you get rich in real estate? Like, and yes, that is like one way to build curiosity, but there's a bunch of other ways you can talk about secrets. So like the secret to getting rich in real estate. People love secrets. Again, that's one of those things where like if you think about like and you're in middle school and like you hear somebody in the back of the class like like they're whispering,
yeah.
even like everybody's talking normal. If you like sense somebody's whispering in the back, like you're gonna turn around and you're see what's going
Yeah.
on. And it's just one of those things where like we're nosy people, we love secrets. So you're talking about secrets is a great way to build curiosity. Opening a loop is people might know this
Mm,
as a cliffhanger or like a curiosity gap. And there's kind of a gap between what you know and what you want to know. That's the most common way of building curiosity. So you might say like do this to sell your house in 30 days. It's like, okay, what is this? So you're sparking that question. You're opening a loop. Like it's like, hey, like here's a way that you can sell your house in 30 days. Like what is that?
mm,
Now like the audience feels compelled that they have to watch this video now. Um, and then you can also be like counterintuitive. So maybe it's like you know how I got rich in real estate without owning any houses. It's like, but like real estate is houses. Like how do and not like
yeah. It's that disqualifier. It's like how I did XYZ, qualifier, qualifier, without, and with.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've typically found like the more qualifiers, like the better the title does.
Talk to me
Even
more about that. I want to hear your opinion on that.
yeah, so a couple examples, like even this podcast, for example, I'll do a podcast and like how Ryan closed 1,000 deals. It's like, okay, that's interesting, but like a lot of people have closed 1,000 deals. But what if it was 1,000 deals in 3 years? Oh, okay. That's like a deal every day. That's crazy. And then, okay, so it's already way more compelling. 1,000 deals in 3 years with a low marketing budget. Okay, he's doing something nobody else is doing. What each qualifier makes it more and more compelling, more and more unique. And so, um, yeah,
I,
I think that's an example for me.
I love that, and so here's like a kind of counterintuitive tip. Like we're talking about building curiosity, and like one way to make a title more compelling is to let the audience know exactly what's going to be in the video. Um, which like sounds like, oh, that doesn't make sense, but like, okay, how we close 1,000 deals. Sweet, I know what this video is about. How we close 1,000 deals in 3 years. Okay, I know more about what this video is about. How we close 1,000 deals with no marketing or with little marketing budget. But you're giving more detail, but somehow that's also building more curiosity, and
Mm.
which feels a little bit more counterintuitive because you want to be kind of like mysterious, but being more specific and talking about constraints and refuting objections, and time frames. Those are all ways of kind of going into more detail, but also like building way more curiosity, making it way more specific and tangible and way more interesting.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was talking recently with one of our care members, he's a real estate investor, Brad Holzman. He actually used to produce TV shows for A&E, like some of the big like house flipping shows. He would produce those. And he was saying like, you gotta tell them what's happening in the very beginning. So like a successful cliffhanger for like a TV reality show, it's like you're already telling them what happened. You're actually spoiling it right up front. So you're telling them everything that happened, but you have the open loop of, okay, how did they get there? So you're giving away the end result. And I think a lot of people, like whether it's in like YouTube or copywriting, they get that wrong. They're like, I have to leave all this mystery. But if there's too much mystery, people just tune out. They're like, I can't relate to it. There's nothing to latch on to. So
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting.
I mean, when you think about like Harry Potter, like, of course, Harry Potter did defeat Voldemort. Like, it's kind of like obvious for almost like every video. But like, you're right. I think you're 100% right. Like the thing is like the how, because it feels so impossible.
Yeah.
It's like Harry's just this little kid, and like Voldemort's is like the scariest wizard of all time. Like, you
Yeah.
know, but for every movie, almost every movie, you know how it's going to end, right? It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, he's going to get the girl, he's going to defeat the bad guy. But you're right. The how is really important. And just like kind of, making it feel like more and more impossible. And I think there's a curiosity spectrum where like, okay, I know nothing about this topic, or I know nothing about this video. I don't care. I know everything about this video. I don't care. You need to be like somewhere in the middle.
Mm.
So you might, the title might be like, I can't believe this happened. It's like, okay, well, like that gives me zero context. I know
Yeah.
nothing about
Yeah.
this video. I don't care. Or you could be like, I can't believe I scored this deal because I won the lottery. It's like, okay, well, he scored the deal because he won the lottery. Like, I
You
also
already
don't
answered
care.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there
Yeah.
has to be kind of that sweet spot when you're thinking about curiosity. And I think that's what a lot of people get wrong is like they try to be too mysterious. They try to like, oh, I can't believe this happened, or you'll never guess this. It's like, well, give me something to
Yeah.
guess.
It's
So
just too much mystery. There's not enough context.
yeah. And just like some tactical ways of doing that are talking about time frames. So like in your example, in 3 years, talking about constraints, with a low marketing budget. We
Mm.
can also like refute objections, like, which is kind of like a constraint and kind of a time frame, like,
Yeah.
as a total beginner or something. It's like, oh,
Mm.
like, might assume that like this person's an expert, but like, oh, how did you do it as a beginner? And those are different ways to think about. It's like, all right, well, how do I make this more interesting? And those are some tactical ways to do that.
Interesting. I think you and I have talked about this off the podcast before. I'll throw you a title that I did recently that did really well. And maybe we'll try to reverse engineer that to give a couple examples for real estate investors. So I think I told you about a video I did for YouTube channel using your tool helped me come up with this title. I had an idea for a video. It was about like, it's for a construction channel. And it was a video about like nails, the different types of nails. And I'm like, that's super exciting. Like, how do we make this sexy? Long story short, the idea evolved into, by using your tool, why we build houses with nails, not screws. Because to most people, you'd think like screws are just better. they're more new age, they hold better, they're stronger. Why the heck would we not? And there's a few answers to it, but it's like it's widely relatable, and it creates that open loop. And so you're telling them, you're telling them like, we do this. Here's the answer, but you're opening the loop. And so that video title just did really well. And maybe this is a spot where I just plug. I was like, hey, but where do we bring up his tool without it feeling like an advertisement? This is shameless plug. I use your tool. It's called Creator Hooks Pro. Go find it. Go get it. You have an awesome tool that it's not. I don't know. How would you describe your tool?
I think it'll help you find the right title for your video and help you kind of get out of like your set ways. So like if most of us, we have kind of like our go-tos of like, oh, like I want to write this title. And like we just like, all right, here, how to blank, and it'll help you just kind of open up your mind, help you think about different ideas or different angles and ways to write titles. So, I mean, just super high level, it's a title and idea generator to help you grow your channel. But it does that by kind of helping you get out of your own head and get your wheels spinning to think about your titles and your ideas kind of different ways, while still using like all the psychology elements that we talked about, like time frames, refuting objection, constraints, curiosity, open loops. All that stuff is built into the tool. So like with one button, you can use all those tactics. But that's
great.
Yeah,
that's a great way to put it. So I use your tool to like remix titles, I think, as your software calls it. So like I'll put in a good idea that's like 6 out of 10, and it'll give me like 8, 9, 10 out of 10 options. Like here's these other angles that I wouldn't have thought of with all those qualifiers. So it'll allow you to like remix titles and then come up with ideas and like reverse engineer what other channels are doing, which is really cool. It just kind of opens up your mind and your creativity and gives you great ideas. So anyways, my plug is over. I'm just telling you guys,
Thanks,
I use this tool. I pay for it. It's super awesome. So anyways, I came up with this idea, and we did the video, why we build houses with nails, not screws. And it went viral. I think it's at like 2.5 million views right now, something like that. And our typical video does like anywhere from 40 to 100,000, 150,000 views. So the video went bananas, and it's like that perfect blend of curiosity. And it got me thinking, like, maybe for a real estate investor, like we teach our members to do a video on like, how the process works of like selling to a cash buyer versus a real estate agent, pros and cons of selling to an investor versus an agent. Maybe the more curiosity, I'm curious your take on this. Maybe the more curious angle is like, why people choose to sell to cash buyers instead of agents, or how it's possible to sell a house in 7 days.
I
don't know.
I think what you just said about selling a house in 7 days, so when you're thinking about titles, one thing that I like to do is I want to zoom in and zoom out. So it's like, okay, we can zoom out. Like, let's just talk about the outcome. Selling your house. Like, how to sell your house in 7 days? Like, how to sell your house without closing costs. Like, I think the secret is really knowing your audience. So like going back to the why we build houses with screws and not nails, like, to be fair, the audience is like kind of everybody. Like it's a very kind of broad title, but what everybody thinks. Like everybody knows that screws are better than nails, right? Like that doesn't really, it's a great question. So like, what are the things that everybody knows, but like that are just like aren't true? So like think about people who are selling houses. Like, what do they think is true, and then but like is actually like not true? And like, how can you challenge their assumptions? How can you challenging assumptions is a great kind of trigger to kind of get yourself thinking this way. What are the false beliefs that they have? And how can you kind of break those false beliefs? How can you challenge those myths? How can you kind of refute their objections, get rid of all their excuses? So when you're talking about like who to sell it to, you could talk about like the myths and excuses and all that stuff. You could also just talk about selling their house, like like we said, like selling your house in in 7 days, what other excuses do they have, and like what things that they think are true about selling a house that are actually not true, and then that would be
Mm.
a great topic.
Top 5 myths about selling to a cash home buyer,
So
something
like
like that.
that is like one way to like zoom out. Like, all right, top 5 myths, but also like how to get a fair offer from a cash buyer or something.
Mm.
Or like,
Yeah.
just really like thinking like, okay, how everybody thinks that you're going to get a lowball offer. Like, what's actually true? Like, okay, how to get the most money from a cash only home buyer or something.
Mm.
So you're kind of
Yeah.
like you're baking that in. So like, yes, we could talk about myths from a general level and like just list out
Mhm.
myths. Like that's also a great topic, but also we can zoom in and just challenge each of those myths one by one.
In
So
its own separate
we kind of
video.
came up
Yeah.
with like 6 different videos. Like we came up with like the top 5 video. Then also each one could be its own video. Um,
Yeah.
how to get the most money from a cash buyer. How to close in 7 days from a mortgage buyer. I don't even know if that's the right term, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, just really getting into your audience's brain, and then really knowing their fears, their problems, their desires, their hopes, their dreams, their goals, their false beliefs, all their myths. Like if you make videos addressing all of those topics, like that's a great content strategy.
Yeah, exactly. That's really good. Yeah, breaking down each individual myth in a video. Yeah, and there's other examples too, like pretty common ones for our audience are like, how to sell a house during a divorce, or like how to sell a house in probate, maybe how to sell like inherited land, or how to sell an inherited property. So it might be like, I mean, this is kind of simplistic, but I feel like it would work well is like how to maybe the biggest mistake people make when selling an inherited home, or how to sell a inherited home without the hassle and fighting, something like that. I don't
I
know.
do that. It's hilarious that you say that because I was honestly thinking like the biggest mistake in selling an inherited home. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think you're
It's
I
not
think you're
crazy out there, but it's like it invokes curiosity. And if I inherited a house, I'm like, I don't want to make that mistake. And there probably is something genuine in there, like thinking that you have to list it and you have to get everybody on board and you have to do it all yourself. That's probably one of the bigger mistakes.
Yeah, and when we're talking about like fear, a lot of people, you know, be like, "Oh, I don't want to be a fear monger. I don't want to do that clickbait crap." I feel like there's kind of like a fear dial. So like,
Mm.
you can turn it up, but like, you will regret this if you sell
Yeah.
your inherited home.
Yeah.
That's like turned all the way up to 10, but you can turn it
That's
down
where
a
my
little bit.
line is. My fear dial is like a few notches below that. I can't quite do the you're gonna regret that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't.
but if you say my biggest regret when I sold my inherited
Mm,
home, that's just that's way more tasteful, and like you're turning it down. You're still
yeah,
using that like super powerful emotion of regret, but it doesn't feel as icky when you say like my biggest regret. So
right.
telling if you want to still use negativity, tell your own stories is a great way to kind of make it feel and sound a little bit better.
Yeah. Or even like my clients' biggest regrets, we
Yeah,
asked our clients their top regrets.
you could say hit like if it depends on how much room you have. So like ideally titles are short enough, but like they don't have to be like 3 words. But like his biggest regret if you're telling a story, I think his biggest regret or like her biggest regret or like um you know this single mom's like this divorced dad or like the single whatever,
Right.
whoever like your ideal client is, if you can tell a story about that type of person, would be great. And like so you wouldn't be like Jake Thomas's biggest regret on this. It's like, oh well, no, nobody knows who the heck Jake Thomas is. But if you say like
Right.
new dad or um, you know uh, like young professional or dentist or something, those are all great ways to tell stories about people without people knowing who they are. Like that's another a big mistake I see, especially podcasters make, where like um, a lot of times like you have like you probably wouldn't really like lead the title of this podcast with Jake Thomas, because there's a
Yeah.
there's a good chance your audience has no idea who I am. They want to
Right.
know what I'm talking about. So you might say YouTube title expert or like YouTube expert.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows what YouTube is, and it would call out the right people, but you would not say Jake Thomas. So kind of judging people and like putting them in
Yeah.
buckets is a great way to make your titles compelling and clear, but also still kind of more specific.
Yeah. So let's drill down on this. We just threw out naturally a few of the title mistakes. Let's find some more, because that was definitely one I made early on. Like as a podcast guy, like waste space, especially up front with like a name that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
Because you feel like it's the right thing to do and you want to be nice to the person, but actually the way to be nice to the person is to put their name at the back or not at all, so the content gets more views, which is interesting. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And also you're talking about length. Like I used to, you could do the same thing with subject lines. Like I used to cram as much as I could in, like for SEO, and there's a balance. Like if it's a pure SEO approach, it's different, than, if you're just trying to get clicks. Maybe sometimes you're trying to do both, so you do have to compromise in the middle. But yeah, I definitely see that like the shorter titles do better, shorter subject lines do better. The exception is for subject lines, sometimes a really long one does better if it's compelling. Anyways, what are some of the other like big mistakes you see?
As far as length goes, I think it depends on audience, right? It depends on, I think, two things: audience and traffic source. So first off, audience in general, younger people, titles or shorter titles do better for younger audiences. Longer titles, if you have an older audience, you can get away with longer titles.
Gotcha.
Whereas like if you have an older audience, you can get away with longer titles. If you have a
Right.
younger audience,
Not that they necessarily do better, but you can get away with it. It's more accepted.
that is exactly why I worded
Less
that
likely
way.
to flop.
Yes, where like, if you look at like Mr. Beast's titles, like I think they're probably all under 40 characters. And he has a younger audience, but like there are so many channels that do well with older audiences, and they can get away with older or with longer titles. It also really depends on your traffic source. So if you're trying to rank in search, let's say I'm trying to rank in search. I got my phone here. I'm searching and I looked up how to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to read every single word of the titles that are in the top results, because I want to know, I'm making an active decision. Should I watch this video? So I'm going to read the whole title. So it can be longer. If I'm just like scrolling on the YouTube homepage, I'm more passively deciding on if I'm going to watch that video. That needs to be shorter, because I'm not putting an effort to read the title to decide if I want to watch it. I'm just like, all right, whatever jumps out at me. So that's, search versus kind of browse there. And it's different. There is no best title length. It depends on your audience and your traffic strategy, traffic source.
Interesting. I would agree with that. So before we move on to mistakes, you were talking about like how you kind of scroll through YouTube and decide what to watch. My theory on how people decide what to watch is like you glance at thumbnail first, and it's like, okay, is the thumbnail even interesting? Did that even stand out? Did it even grab my attention? What's happening here? Is it something I can relate to? If it passes the glance at thumbnail test, then they'll look at the title. And if the title is compelling, and if there's a clear connection between the title and the thumbnail, then they'll decide to watch the video. Is that kind of how you look at it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree that the glance of the thumbnail is what gets you to read the title. And then like when you read the title, that's when you decide, okay, I'm going to watch this video or I'm not going to watch this video. So they're both very important. Like obviously you have to read the title to decide to watch a video. And the way that you do that is through the thumbnail. But also you have to get a view, someone has to decide to watch a video, and you do that usually, at least more for educational channels, by having a good title. So I would, so far everything that we've said, we are 100% in agreement with.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, also, this is not a title mistake, but it kind of is. I used to do this for a while. I used to take some of the same text I'd use in my title and put it as text in the thumbnail. And I didn't realize how redundant that was. But it's just like the natural thing to do. Be like, well, it's a YouTube thumbnail. This is what you do. You describe. And the more I learn about YouTube, the more I realize like you actually want a really compelling image, a really compelling visual, and the text is less important, and only put text in there if you need to give it like an extra edge, or if there's a specific purpose for it. But like, don't default to thinking I have to have text.
I think it is very channel dependent on that.
Yeah.
I used to run a dog channel, and we did a lot of testing of text versus no text. Text won every single time.
Interesting.
We also did a lot of testing of like single panel versus two panel thumbnails. So like, one image versus like, a kind of a split screen, two images. The split screen, two images almost never worked for us.
Really?
However, there are other channels where like every single video, every single thumbnail is a split screen, is a two panel thumbnail. So I think a lot of those tactical things are channel dependent. So and I figured that out by doing a lot of A/B testing. And so like, since I've done all that, now moving forward, I only do what's working. So now like, okay, well, I don't need to test this element, but I do need to test like this element. I always test the copy, but like, I don't need to, test anything else. But yeah, and I think complementing is the right word, and how they should work together. And I think redundant is the mistake. It's not necessarily a mistake, more of like a missed opportunity. It's like, dang, you had pretty much like, two titles, but like they're the same. So like you could have kind of attacked the viewer, from two different angles. Like, you want to click this, you really want to click this, right? Like, and I think it's a big missed opportunity when you just repeat yourself. Because it's you have the opportunity to kind of, build more curiosity, build more desire, build a little bit more fear, if that's, the strategy you're going for. And repeating yourself kind of defeats the purpose. However, I have seen several thumbnails from very, very successful creators that pretty much just repeat the title. But in those cases, it's just a really, really, really good angle. And it's like, hey, well, you might as well use it twice because it's incredible.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, is like all of these things we're talking about are like generalizations. They work most of the time. They work for most channels. What I see work really well is like on YouTube, and this is like, guys, don't take this as like SEO advice. This is not, but like the videos that do the best on YouTube, you could botch the title or do it 10 different ways and it would do well because the concept is so unique. They did something so original. One of my favorite examples of this is you might have stumbled across this channel. My 21-year-old brother turned me on to this kid. It's called I Built a Thing, or I Did a Thing. One of those.
I haven't seen it.
If you search on YouTube, you'll probably find it. This guy, like he makes a hammer with bullets in it. So like you swing the hammer and a bullet comes out to like drive a nail, or like a jet powered bicycle, or he put a scoop on the front of a car to like pick up humans, like a safety net for the front of the car, like so you pick up pedestrians instead of smashing them with your car. Just like obscure, crazy things. Or he did like the spring trap from Minecraft. I don't know. My kid had to tell me what this was. Some sort of spring trap you step on in Minecraft and it springs you up. And he did that in real life. And if you step on it, it will actually like break your leg or kill you. It's crazy. So he does these like physical, like semi-mechanical engineered crazy DIY experiments, but the ideas are so unique, like they just do extremely well. I don't know what my point was there, but I just think that there's some credit to be had for like really unique ideas and concepts rather than getting too into the weeds on titles sometimes.
I 100% agree. You could write the best title in the world, but if it's a horrible concept, then it like doesn't matter. So like and like obviously like those are all really cool. Those are all like really cool examples for like kind of entertainment, like just doing crazy stuff. Well, like, what if you
Mhm.
did like really crazy stuff with like real estate investing? Like, what if you bought a house every day for 30 days? What
Mm.
if what if you um, you know traded like um, you know a penny to buy a house in 7 days, or like what if you bought a house with like zero money? All those like those are kind of like crazy ideas, um, but they're interesting, right? They're all
Yeah.
challenging, they're all unique, they're all like there's like some sort of desire there because you're like, I would love to buy a house with no money. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Honestly, that's one of the best examples. That's one of the ones that does well. It's like how I bought this multifamily apartment unit, whatever, for $0.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, um, life will be a lot easier if you start with a great idea.
Yeah.
Like your thumbnail will be easier, your title will be easier. Really just and starting with a great idea goes back to knowing your audience. Like what do they want? What are they interested in? Like what
Yeah.
are their desires? What are their excuses? And all that stuff will help you come up with better ideas. And then your title just kind of like clearly says, hey, this is what this video is about. Like you are interested in this video. That's right. Watch this video.
Yeah. So, do you have any sort of like process that you go through to come up with like new compelling concepts? And I'm specifically saying not titles, like new concepts, new ideas for any business or industry. Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So I'll give you a quick example. When I like when my first foray into YouTube, I was managing a channel for a fishing company, and we would do like reel reviews, like fishing reel reviews. And I
Mm,
was really bad at at titles at the time and concepts and
mhm.
stuff. So I would do, and we were trying to rank in search. So
Okay.
I would look up like laptop reviews or like vacuum reviews or like camera reviews. I would try to find other review channels, and then I'd be like, oh, like, like this camera will change everything, and like the thumbnail is just like a really close up picture of a cool looking camera. Like, what if we made a
Mm,
video like this fishing reel will change everything? And it was just like a really sick shot of the reel. Like, so going into adjacent niches is the easiest way to do this. Um,
mm.
and just like, so I was in fishing and I was looking up camera and laptop and vacuum and, all other like makeup reviews and stuff. So if you're in real estate, like you can go for like, finance, fitness, marketing, entrepreneurship, like, really, really anything. And the kind of the best way to do this, I think, or maybe the best slash easiest way is to if like look up channels that make a similar type of content that you do. So like we did fishing education. Like there's like there's fishing education and there's like fishing vlogs. But like since we were doing education, like it wouldn't really make sense to look at other vlog channels. Like that's not what we were doing. But like we were making educational channels, so it made sense for us to look at like finance education channels, real estate education channels, because they were making the same like top 10 lists or like reviews or like tips and all that kind of stuff. We were making the same type of content. So my like the first thing I do whenever I create a new channel or whenever I talk to people about creating new channels is like make two lists. Make your dream 10. These are your competitors, right? They talk about the same topics that you do. And that's where you're going to get your topics. And then you make a list of like your model 10. And these are channels that have similar content style to you, but they do not talk about the same topic as you. So these are like adjacent
Mm.
channels.
Okay. Yeah.
So if I had a real estate investing channel, my dream 10 would all be other real estate investment channels. My model 10 would be like other educational channels, assuming that I'm an educational channel. And then what I do is for my dream 10, I'm looking for outliers. So I would like sort the videos by most popular. And I would make a note of all those topics that are working. And then I would look at their last 30 videos and like, okay, well, they average 10,000 views a video. Well, if a video got 100,000 views, I'm making a note. And I'm just making a
Yeah.
note of all those topics, right? So maybe I have 10 topics for my dream 10. These are all the outlier videos, all these videos that did really well. And then I go to my model 10 And I look for outliers from their channels as well, their last 30, 40 videos. And I'm looking at those formats. So I'm going to look at my Model 10, those 10 channels. I'm going to find some of their best performing formats. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to marry those two. I'm going to have my proven topics with these proven formats. And boom, that's how I'm going to come up with a bunch of different ideas.
Ooh, that is good, man. I'm sitting over here taking notes. So adjacent niches, adjacent channels, find your top 10 for each. This is good. A lot of reverse engineering.
And
that's a great breakdown.
You're kind of like cheating the system a little bit. Like, okay, I know my audience likes these topics, right? These have proven to work for my competitors. And I know that people like these frameworks, like these have proven to work for kind of adjacent channels. So like, your odds of, you're increasing your odds of success by making content that people, that you're pretty sure that people have proven that they like. All this stuff is proven. So you're greatly increasing the odds that these videos are going to do well.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. That is good. Well, shoot, we are at time. I'm actually missing a meeting with my team there. I'm late to, so we will begin to wrap it up. I feel bad leaving my team hanging. I get sucked into the conversation because it's so good. It's such good advice, man.
This was a good conversation.
I appreciate you pouring it out, just being honest and sharing everything you've learned. I know it's taken you years to learn this stuff and it doesn't come overnight. So thanks for sharing with our audience. Before we wrap it up, dude, we'll do a quick fire round. I got 4 questions for you. You have not been prepped for this at all. I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock. I want to see how much value we can cram in before we bring it to a close. Okay. Number 1, best piece of marketing advice, whether it's a strategy or tactic.
Ooh, the first thing that came to my mind was whoever this is a Dan Kennedy quote, and I'm totally botching it, but whoever can spend the most to acquire a customer wins. So essentially, it means get a really high LTV. You have a really built out and structured back end so that you can spend a lot of time to get or spend a lot of money and time to get customers, and those customers are worth a lot.
Ooh, and yeah, I've heard that. I get the quote. It's okay. That's a good piece of advice. Number 2 out of 4, what's a book that changed your life and what's the problem it solved?
A book that changed my life. I'm going to give you 2, and these are very related to what we're talking about here. These are marketing books. One is Joe Sugarman's advertising. It's like it's Adweek Guide to Advertising or something. Just look up Joe Sugarman Adweek book. Yeah. It's essentially like how he wrote his sales copy and his like sales pages. But it was written in the 70s, and I have like the updated version that was like updated in like 06. But like you're reading it and you're like, wait a minute, is this like a how-to on YouTube? Like it's really good. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. So there's that, and then Age of Propaganda by Anthony Protkanis and Elliott. By Protkanis and Elliott, someone. But Age of Propaganda, and those are both. Age of Propaganda is really good in psychology. A lot of people have heard of Influence by Cialdini. I liked Age of Propaganda better. It's a little bit more broad and it covers more tactics. But it's kind of what we talk about here, just like psychology and really getting to know people.
Okay, nice. I like that. I'm taking notes here. Age of Propaganda and Joe Sugarman, the Adweek book. Okay, 3. What advice would you give your younger self, young Jake Thomas? What would you tell him?
Invest in Bitcoin. No. No, I have fun. I guess. I mean, I'm having fun. Dude, I have no regrets. Like, I'm loving what I'm doing. Like, I'm talking about YouTube titles all day. Like, I'm having a blast. I would probably say nerd out on one thing. By me focusing on YouTube titles, you probably wouldn't have me on this podcast if I was just a general YouTube advice guy. Right. I am right now, knock on wood, I'm the go-to guy for YouTube titles. But that's only because nobody else talks about it. But like, it's opened so many doors for me.
Yeah. It's super specific. That's good advice. Niche down on one thing and really niche and have fun. If you're not having fun, you can't sustain it.
Yes.
Okay, last thing, and then we got to wrap. Is there any impact you're making that that lights you up? Anything you're doing that you're really excited about? You want to share?
I
big or
recently
small?
hired my mom and dad to help me with research for my newsletter.
No way.
And that's been fun.
That is so cool.
It's been fun. I love cutting them a paycheck every month.
Yeah.
Knowing it's really it's actually helping them, and it's fun for them too. And it just that's been great.
What a cool connection, man. That is awesome. First time I heard that one. What a cool thing, man. Jake, again, I appreciate you coming on here. Where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, creatorhooks.com. Creatorhooks.com is the newsletter. That's free. And then you can look up Jake Thomas on Twitter or LinkedIn. Just look up Jake Thomas. You'll see a guy with a hat and a beard and a golden retriever, and that is me. That's it.
Nice. I appreciate it, man. Well, thanks again for hopping on. Guys, if you like this podcast, share with a friend, share it on social media. If you have any comments, questions, shoot me an email, brady@carrot.com. I'd love to nerd out anytime, but thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.